The problem is this. They still believe that they're on a sphere. And the conversation I was having yesterday with a guy was saying to me, but the sextant is working, and it's working on a sphere. No, the sextant is working on a flat earth.
That's why they're in pain.
But all the people that were once here, you can find them all together in one group. Over there on Jose G. Gonzalez, you see all the usual suspects that were once here, but got a spanking. Never come back anymore. And when they do, they get their ass handed to them. But they congregate on other shows, you know. And
if they went to a psychiatrist and were talking about these subjects, it'd go something like this. Yeah, I have a globe belief. I used to hide behind science, and now science is going against me, and logic's going against me. Well, explain more. Well, you know, an angle, two straight lines and a vertex, and I can't have that on the globe. So it can't work with a curve adjacent. So, but it must, because I'm a globe believer. And the psychiatrist's going to look at him and say, what?
Say how everybody knows it's a sphere. Don't worry about it. That's what the doctor would say, because he's not looked into it or going to really pay attention to the logic that's been breached that's put him in the nut house. The doctor just says, oh, we all just know it's a globe. And the guy who's deep in the hole, the anti-flat earther that we're referring to in this example, looks up at that guy who's right at the top of the mountain with a blissful ignorant sphere belief, and all he wants is to be like that doctor and go, well, I know it's a sphere. I don't need to give this any concern. And the doctor's only advice, because that's the position he's in, he's not an anti-flat earther, he's just your bog-standard globe believer. Just says, oh, we know. Don't let this fuss you. The whole world knows we're on a sphere.
Let's keep it going. Yeah, but I can't help but go back to those shows, because every time they talk, it seems like my belief is just a belief. I can't validate it. What now, doctor?
Just go away and know it's a sphere, because everybody else knows, like I know, and you know too, don't you? Don't let these contradictions trouble you. So, shout out to Fiber Oats, who says, if I can't impose my model on you, then it seems obvious that science doesn't exist. Interesting concept. Now we are joined by Arwin, the Adam Meakin, 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Greetings.
Afternoon, everyone.
how are you?
Hello, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome. Good to have you all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Start with a straightforward nope.
Well, if you were going to try to calculate it, you'd need to measure the angles on a flat plane first.
Any evidence you can have an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
No, but I did send the question to Neil deGrasse Tyson again. I rephrased it.
Hey, Bev. I'll just edit that out. Hey, Bev.
And that one.
And that. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
What's that?
You're going to need all for it, whatever it is.
What was that, Arwin?
We ain't got no reference frames.
We don't need no deviation. Any evidence of distance to the sun?
We ain't got no reference frames.
Boom, 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 boom.
Hey, teacher, you and your reference frames are ruined. Distance to the sun? Anybody at all?
What is the sun?
It's just another brick in the sky.
I love it.
We'll stick with 3 AUs.
Hold on. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I bet if you're a heliocentrist, the first thing you'll do is try to use elevation angles.
What, flat plane measurements of 2 straight lines?
Yeah, and then try to insert R.
So throughout the pre-show, apparently Bob the Science Guy's released a video about how he can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent. And in fact, from what I understand, I haven't obviously watched this video. I don't watch Bob. Let me get it straight. He's measured his angles off a flat surface and then said, hey, if they were on a curved surface, they'd only be this different. Is that correct? Yes, Nathan, just like we all talked about. All right, thanks.
Basically, yeah, he measured the angles with a straight line and then said this is what they would look like on a sphere.
Those straight lines that he measured on a flat plane. I mean, that's fascinating. He can transpose the flat plane measurements he took off the ground with a flat plane and 2 straight lines meeting at a vertex and said, guess what? If I take these flat plane measurements taken off a flat plane, they'll look like this on a sphere. That's really interesting. Thanks, Bob. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
You need to know what it is first.
We know what it is. It's the bending of a conceptual medium known as pseudo-Riemannian force space.
And what is that?
Length, breadth, depth and time, a conceptual medium only described in maths as pseudo-Riemannian force space.
But you can't really scientifically prove a concept now, can you?
No, who said this was science? This is just maths.
You
Not
and your
real.
scientific proof for gravity is ruined, Nathan.
There isn't such a thing. We're talking about the description of bending time. Don't be so silly. You can't bend time, it's just a concept. But I can describe it in maths, it's called gravity.
What would time be bending around?
It wouldn't. Concepts do not bend, nor do they dilate. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
All that conditioning that you live on a globe next to the vacuum of space.
Yeah, that's Hollywood laughing at you right there on screen. That's Hollywood going, yeah, you all believe the sky is a vacuum. Yeah, let's put a vacuum in the sky. Of course, to make that work, we'll have to put a great big dome all the way around Earth to have gas pressure to remove by way of vacuum. But there we go. It's obviously humorous to Mel Brooks. Right, if you consider what a vacuum is actually doing, it's creating a differential in the chamber so that the pressure of the air outside of the chamber forces the dirt along with the air that's trying to equalise into the bag. So you lower the pressure in the bag, therefore the higher pressure pushes all the dirt into the bag. So you're utilising the high pressure gas that we sit in anyway, and just lowering it a bit in a chamber means that high pressure can literally force stuff into a direction that you're trying to aim it. Well, that's wonderful. But because you've got a lower pressure in the bag, the gas wants to travel towards that lower pressure in the bag. Well, in this instance on screen, the lower pressure is the black area. That's the differential. Well, all that the pressure inside the chamber, below where there's a cartoon-style vacuum, wants to do, when it gets to that little gap, so I'll just draw what I'm talking about on screen with my mouse. This gap here, around where there's a cartoon-style vacuum, a gas particle that reaches here no longer has anything to press on. So it just goes out. That's all it does. So another gas comes all the way from the ground, comes to this little hole, nothing to press on, so it goes out. Now imagine what would happen if you removed this layer, this chamber, this dome, whatever they call it in Spaceballs. Suddenly, there's nothing at all anywhere to stop any gas from going into the black area, which is precisely what gas wants to do. Just expands in whatever direction it's moving, and just keeps doing it till it collides with another gas particle or the walls of a container. That's what it does. So if you don't have the walls of a container, the gas we breathe would fill the space. We'd all be dead if the sky was a vacuum. So the sky is not a vacuum.
So when to the earlier question, the bending of space-time, so they would have us believe that this concept, this made-up thing, bending of space-time, is the result of that air being around the Earth and not escaping. Is that right?
Well, yes and no. Many of the things we have in the heliocentric model, including time and much of the geometries, derive from celestial objects that we could describe as being clocks and calendars. Well, they're moving in a pattern that allows you to track what we have redefined as time and put it into a numeric construct. And then from there, with the issues that transpose thereafter, when you move the sky movements onto a spherical ground that you infer from those movements, suddenly you've got a whole bunch of issues that don't reconcile themselves. Obviously, I'm not going to rehash what we've been talking about for the last 8 to 10 weeks, which is the sextant. That's the obvious one at the moment for anybody who's been watching. But there's a whole bunch of other problems that occur when you reverse engineer time into geometry. Well, that leaves them with the necessity to make up this bullshit narrative about gravity. And when the gravity doesn't work out in terms of them holding matter onto a spherical surface that's spinning, with mass attracting mass 107 years ago, well, then you've got to somehow move that forward into the very thing you derived the concept of a spherical ground from in the first place, which is where we get our time from in the first place. Well, then you end up coming full circle and ending up with this bending conceptual medium of space-time. And it's like, it's all backwards. we aren't reifying into existence a force that doesn't exist, that isn't really a force, but you can think of it as a force because it's a bending space-time medium that's in maths only. All of that nonsense has come as a result of deriving what we see in the sky and their movements onto the ground. So, for instance, the equator. Is the equator actually a place or a thing or an outside edge of a sphere? It's none of those things. But it's reified into existence from the movement of the lights in the sky. Now, they could be used to track time in a very sophisticated manner, as opposed to the doesn't quite work numbers that we assign as mere mortals. But that's what we've got. We've got the numbers we assign reified back into the existence in the sky, which is where we got the ground from in the first place, curving. Bit of a mouthful. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
But anyway, we had Flat Earth Goddess on it, and she was saying, why do you guys get so triggered about science? We're like, because that's how I've been deceived in the first instance. So when it comes to the housekeeping question about any viable hypothesis from any of those fields, try to bear in mind as an audience member on any side of the argument that that's all you'll hear all day long, claims of science this and science that, and 99% of it isn't. But that's the magic trick. The heliocentric world's been sold to you on the basis that it's got science, and you were told from an early age that science proves things. Therefore, if they've got science, they've got proof of a heliocentric world. They told you with maths, not science. So that importance was stressed to Flat Earth Goddess when asking us how we could unify Flat Earth, and then along with a few tales of woe when it comes to disseminating this information to people on our own side who have braced against it with furious anger towards me. But there we go. Not always the case. You know, the exact same scenario that was described to her in terms of someone who won't be named in this instance was identical to what I had to do with John Dee. So a PhD, far more qualified than I, and I'm having to lecture him on his misapprehensions about the scientific method, with him in his nicest possible way going, I think I'd know. I don't think you know, it didn't say that, but, you know, I think I've got a good grasp on this. And me having to say, no, you haven't. You know, and it takes a bit of balls to do that. You know, QE's very much adept at approaching PhDs and calling them piled higher and deeper. And, you know, he's got all the confidence in the world. Me, I'm not QE in that regard. So I had to do the same thing as I did on another show, let's just say, with John Dee. And after pretty much the same information going his way, eventually he was like, bloody hell, this is amazing. My misapprehensions, and, you know, to all intents and purposes, he thanked me for the information and has done, I would hope, better for it, because he's recognised, like everybody else on this panel right now, where he's been deceived. Now, I can't take any credit for this whatsoever, but Adam went through the same journey, which is something I'm going to hand over to now to reiterate the point, because he did the exact same thing on the exact same journey, but rather than me disseminating the information to John Dee, it was QE disseminating the information to Adam.
Yep. Yeah. I suppose how you receive that information and that reality is dependent on your motivation. And it is a bit humbling, ego knocking, I suppose, because you do. John's got his PhD, I've got my qualification. And what do you mean? The conceptions I've been used to and I'm congratulating myself on are false. And it's realising that. I'll say it was probably easier for me because medicine does distinguish itself from science and that. So it's easier for me to get that grasp. But it's still, as I say to QE, it was still quite a kick in the nuts at the time because you do have to take it on the chin. But when you do, it's very empowering because suddenly you've got that validity again and you can see why certain things aren't science, aren't this, and shouldn't be called this. And for me, it reaffirmed the power of science and what you'd kind of seen as a dilution of power of the word science in terms of its meaning and its certainty. When you go back to accept that, whilst it is a little ego jolting at first to get that, and you're John Dee, you're told by some bloody grocery delivery boy at the time, you don't know what science is. Yeah. Like I say, the response, I think, speaks a lot of the person. If you take it on board, knowing all your science and accept the truth and move forward from there, you can move forward quite positively, I think. But it's a tough one to accept because you want to argue. You want to argue all the things you've stood by and said is science over all the years. You weren't lying, you weren't wrong. but you were. And I said, that's the kick in the nuts. But once you accept it and move forwards, then science does have a lot more power to you and useful at determining things, as opposed to just a word you throw in to the layman would back up what you're saying without any real validation.
So, has anybody ever seen the movie Lorenzo's Oil?
Yeah, great film.
It is a fantastic.
Nick
movie.
Nolte, right?
Yeah, with Nick Nolte, yeah, and Susan Sarandon. Anywho, there's a point in the movie where he goes to, like, Johnson and Johnson or someone like that, a great chemist.
ICI, isn't it? I think
ICI, yeah. And he basically they want this extraction doing, and it's a very, very complicated extraction in terms of how they can derive this particular strain of a particular oil down to its pure form, so they could administer it to a patient that's lacking this particular complex non-fatty acid or something along those lines. Anyway, the point is that when you see that scene, the old dude, this, I think you'd call him a pharmacist, would you not, Adam?
Yeah, pharmaceutical chemist, yeah.
Right, a pharmaceutical chemist. When you see his apparatus in this 50 by 50 room, big room, and everywhere it's like Frankenstein's laboratory. He's got Bunsen burners running under metal and tubes, heating up liquids that are condensing and dripping down coils, and it's all over the room. It's everywhere, right? And it looks amazing. But he's not doing any science. None. He's not establishing any causes of any natural phenomena that he's studying. That's not occurring. He's doing a very complex extraction. But if you're the layman and you walk in, and that guy in the white coat, to you, he represents science. What's that man doing? He's doing science. Isn't that obvious? Look at all the tubes. Obviously he's a scientist, isn't he? No, he's not. Now, for that guy who, to the layman, when you walk in and see him in his lab coat with all of his glass tubes and Bunsen burners, when that guy says something, he has a certain authority as a, and I'm going to say it incorrectly, scientist. He'll get a certain amount of respect for what he's doing. Now, when he produces his product, in this instance, a very complex oil that's been extracted through a very complex process, that is what it is, right? It is what you need it to be, and you can test it and prove that it is that particular extract, and it is what you wanted to achieve, and therefore, right, proven, right? QED, there it is. It is demonstrated he can do it. So therefore, scientists, right? Again, no. Now, when, let's say it's me, I go up to that guy and say, yeah, but none of that was science. You didn't establish the cause of any naturally occurring phenomena through systematic experimentation with a null. You didn't do any of that. So none of this is science. Well, what do you think that guy's reaction's going to be when his entire life has been predicated on the notion that he's a scientist and I've just told him he isn't? And when he claims that the oil that is produced, well, that was produced by science. And I go, no, it wasn't. I'm not decrying how marvellous you are and I'm in awe of what you've done, but it wasn't science. Yeah, that's going to undermine a certain amount of authority that person had throughout their life. And suddenly they can look back on those things, this is what Adam's just described, and think of all the times they talked about the science that they did when they produced oil, in this example. And it wasn't. Well, that, as Adam, I'll paraphrase what he said, is a bit of a kick in the nuts to a highly professional...
Well, what was it then?
Go on, whoever that was.
Well, what was it then? So what was he doing, if not science?
A recipe. It's called, fundamentally, you could call it cooking, couldn't you? But I would call it compounding, if I wanted to make it sound, but it's no different to following a recipe, is it?
He's doing an extraction. He's extracting one thing from a combination of things. Well, some of them are combined together in manners that you couldn't even begin to imagine how to unseparate unless you're extremely skilled, which that guy in that movie, which is based on a true story, was extremely skilled. But if you're under the misapprehension that when that guy starts talking about something, what he says, the words he uses and the detailed descriptions he gives are scientific, then you've got a misapprehension about science. Now, the problem is that power, the word science, gives that guy... I'm not pretending for 1 second that this guy in ICI is actually utilising it in this manner. It's just an example. But when he has this authority technically taken away from him in a manner, because the common vernacular would suggest that he's a scientist doing science, therefore everything he does is proven and true. And there's going to be things that this guy talks about that may be, let's say, outside of his professional arena that are nonsense. If he talks about heliocentrism, that would be a case in point, right? Suddenly, if he starts talking about outer space, this chemist, then, well, hold on. Why do I take this as read? Why am I taking this at face value? Well, obviously, anybody who's next to me says, this man's a scientist. So, of course, he's a scientist. This man is science. And suddenly, he's not. He's a magician with a hat on telling you a story about an outer space sky vacuum that stands in violation of natural law. But because he's got all of this stuff in the background, suddenly he represents science. Now, nobody wants that power taken away from them. And a lot of people in our own arena, on our own side, I say under my breath, also recognise this magic trick. And they'll punt science too. This is science, that's science. This man-made device, this gizmo, that's science. That proves my point I'm making. Yeah? It's the same magic trick being utilised by our own side. Anyway, the point of all this was, back to Flat Earth Goddess, when it comes to unifying with people who don't recognise this, don't want to recognise this, in fact, potentially want to utilise the exact same trick we've been deceived with to give themselves a bit more authority, power and credibility, then that's something that, unfortunately for me, I don't want. Now, I could just keep my mouth shut, right, and just babble on about science all the time, every time I talk crap about something I don't really understand or a claim I've made that I can't validate. I'll just say science afterwards, and I'll get a load of followers, and they'll believe I'm the big honcho and all the rest of it, just because I've used a few magic words at a few choice moments. Well, that's not what we do here, right? We disseminate how you've been deceived, so you can go forth from here and go, Timotei, now comes the science part. That's not science. Well, if that's your thought process after watching this show, then jobs are good, and as far as I'm concerned, we've achieved something.
So wait, you guys are against the scientific methods?
That was the reply we got after a similar explanation on Thursday's show that went out yesterday on Nathan Oakley channel. So subscribe today to Nathan Oakley channel, my second channel. Still not all the way through housekeeping. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius. Also, did anybody share the show? It's been about 100 people watching for about 20 minutes. And have we heard anything from Bev, as there's a protracted silence right this second?
Hello.
Hello, Bev. Good to have you.
Good day.
You're killing it, mate. I'm watching your show regularly because you're killing it.
Yeah. Thank you.
They don't know what
Could
to do.
Could do with some more people watching.
So if you don't know who Bev is, Bev's of the moment right now, because if you're obviously watching Flat Earth Debate, you'll hear us talking about the sextant all day long, every day. Well, while the sextant is a tool, and some might say, well, that's a fad, you know, it's like the black swan, it'll come, it'll go, it'll be another argument that's tucked into your pocket. That won't hang around forever. But the principles that the argument that we're using currently are based on is something that Bev has talked about ever since he got here. And so this is very much Bev's moment, because they hear the stuff here about sextants and elevation angles and adjacents and all the stuff that Bev talks about. Then they go to Bev's and hear him talking about it in even more detail. And it's very disturbing for them. I shouldn't laugh, because I know you're not interested in causing people cognitive pain, Bev, but there we go.
Yeah, we've narrowed it down to logic at the minute. Like the common cause it is the logic, and as soon as the logic enters the argument state, then the model just has to disappear. It's the model's a ridiculous concept. As soon as you start thinking logically about it, and yeah, they're in pain, real pain at the minute.
Yeah, I hear a lot of familiar things from familiar people that go by your way, moaning about the exact same things they moan about me about, if you know what I mean, but with you. Whereas you seem that much more chilled out than I am, typically. You know, I'll sooner berate somebody than empathise with them, whereas you'll sort of take them under your wing and then take the piss out of them, call them snowflakes and things, which I also appreciate a lot.
Them. Yeah, I love them to say that stupid stuff, right? It's much better hearing them say it, because then everybody can hear me. You hear them say it, right? And you don't berate them for it. You want them to say it because there's some classics. I mean, we had Rumpus in last night. That was interesting. Very interesting. I'm just got it on the cutting board. Yeah, the lengths they've had to go to. There's some interesting times coming up because they've had to give up proof completely. We've got SE doing the proof project 2022, where we're going around just asking people what is proof? Like, what would you accept as proof? What does it mean to you? Sort of unanimous reply, even though Rumpus said it was different, is that there is no proof in science. They've had to give it up completely.
What a massive turnaround. 2015, the whole body of science proves we're on a sphere. 2022, oh, no, science, it doesn't prove anything. I mean, we can't possibly accept that this empirical method of validation, and logically speaking, as that's your thing, if A, then B, or, not and, or, just or, if A, not B. That's science right there. Right, you can't have both. And if you prove one or the other, then you've proven one or the other. So it's absolutely about proving things, but because they haven't got any, they now have to deny that science proves things.
Yeah, that's it, right? We've got them saying that because of the conversations that go on in this community, i.e., all of us, right? You involved as well. Which they call themselves the scientific community in this sort of arena, they've had to give up proof. Right? They literally admit it's because of the conversations that we have, all of us, everybody in this arena, has caused them to give up proof. And I don't know where you are. Where are you without any proof?
On a flat Earth.
But to be fair, I do remember my son at the age of 13 telling me that. And that was years ago. That science doesn't prove anything; it disproves things.
Well, because of logic, like Nathan said, the 3 laws of basic thoughts, that you exclude the middle. There is only on or off, yes or no. There is no middle part. So by proving the negative, you sort of like the only leaves you one other option. That's the way science works. In reality, right? This gets a little bit strange. But, when you start you realize that we're in conversations with people, and these people are actually giving up proof because of the conversations we're having with them. It's got to be dangerous for them.
It's not giving up proof, though. That's a bad phraseology. Sorry to nitpick. It's not giving up proof. It's just a repositioning, a reassessment of what they considered proof. So when they affirmed the consequent and talked about hemispheric observations, for example, well, up until the point that we point out, well, unless you're assuming that you're antipode from where you started with this example, you're not proving anything. It's just based on your assumption. Well, before someone points that out, that's proof. I go down to the southern hemisphere, I assume that I'm antipode, and therefore when I look up, it's now down, and when I look down, actually up, I see the stars moving around. Therefore I'm on a ball. You go, no, you've just assumed that you travelled south and ended up antipode. Well, that's a begging the question fallacy. That's not proof. So does that mean that they've given up on their proof? It just never was proof. They didn't ever have any globe proof. So when they say we've given up on our proof, yeah, that's the way, that's their rephrasing and repackaging of we've debunked all your crappy claims. That's what's actually happened. Shout out to Mike Jones, who says, where's Wally and Wolfie don't even realise the full extent of the cognitive pain they're in yet. But they will soon. Smiley face. Thanks for the super chat, Mike Jones.
Yeah, hey, I know about that.
You know about that? What do you mean? There's more to it. Fill us in.
Yeah, the Wally and the Wolfie. Well, like I say, we don't want to give too much away, but you ask for proof of R, and Dave Weiss has been asking for a globe proof, and Wally has tried to present it. They're struggling at the minute because they don't realise that they've opened up a massive fallacy within the geometrical argument.
They have indeed.
And Yeah, it'll be coming anyway. So, shout out Wally.
They've relinquished their geometric horizon. So, applying refraction with an R-based value at 7/6R in standard form, or any other derivation of that R-based refraction value, that's refraction on a sphere in sphere-shaped air, always going to be based on an R, I'm afraid, fundies. So you're going to need R for it. Well, they get the R from the geometric tangent point horizon, and that's been debunked with the black swan. It's beyond the limitations of their geometry. So the physicality they're claiming in the first place is Earth curve horizons. And if the physicality of a hill in the way moves beyond things it should be blocking, it's no longer a hill in the way with physicality. Well, that's their claim. That's Earth curve. So we've debunked their geometric horizon. The tangent point they're currently all barking about because they need to take angles off flat planes. So they need a tangent plane that meets a sphere at a single point. And what point's that? Oh, it's the tangent point. Oh, that's your Earth curve edge horizon. The geometric horizon we debunked. We haven't got that anymore. It's all refracted according to you. What is it? No Atmo day? Yeah, and you're going to need R to refract it. And you can't measure it anymore. If you haven't got geometry, Earth measurements at the geometric horizon, the measurable physical tangent point horizon called Earth curve, if you haven't got that anymore, you essentially don't have a claim anymore. There is no claim of Earth curve anymore. You need Earth curve for an Earth curve claim. You haven't got it. Game over geometry. You can't measure it.
Well, it's a good thing nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve, does it?
End quote, Tim Osman. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. Well, you do. On this diagram marked with an X labelled horizon, claimed to be the position on the edge of the hill that is an Earth with a curved surface, blocking things in the distance with the mathematics on screen to show it. Horizon's your Earth curve. That's precisely what you claim in the first instance, but when you debunk it, by showing it's not physically where it should be, and physical geometric objects don't physically change their physical geometric position, because then they're no longer measurable positions, because they move. And when you point that out, they go, nobody's claiming the horizon's Earth curve. Except when we put up demonstrations like this one on screen with a ball and something behind it, and the geometric edge being the obstruction, you think the Earth curve edge horizon represents in reality. It just isn't anymore. So paradoxically, you don't have any geometry. There's no claim of an Earth curve edge anymore. There's no claim for a sphere anymore. That's a geometric claim we've debunked.
Can I comment on pain?
On pain?
Yes.
Well, by all means.
See, this pain is not going to go away, and I don't want it to go away. I want more pain. You know why? Because they're liars. They're deceivers. They deserve 10 times more pain. And let them come and make a fool of themselves with their bad arguments, bad logic. When you're going to go lie about the nature of our Earth, and you enter a discussion where someone's trying to say, well, where'd you get that to say that? And you just want to have that discussion. And then they resort to lying. And now that the white coat of science no longer serves them because the trick has been unmasked, they're willing to throw science under the bus. That's how much of a liars they are. So the very thing they used to hoodwink everyone is no longer hoodwinking anyone. So they say, you know what? That apparatus, that white coat, we got to get rid of it because it's killing us right now. So that white coat's no longer working for them. The more pain they get, the better, because they're liars. Now, truth seekers avoid pain because they can enter into a conversation. And as you said earlier in the show with Dr. John D. and Adam, once they found out what the scientific method was and what real science was, they didn't suffer pain because they're not liars. They're truth seekers. So these people are deceivers. To me, they're the enemy of mankind. So more pain, the better, until they change, of course. Then we'll offer mercy.
Yeah, but that's what one of the points I wanted to make was that because of the conversations in this arena with i.e. there's no globe proof. There is no proof. I mean, everybody within this arena, you've got your housekeeping questions and all that. They've never been challenged. There is no globe proof. But the point I'm trying to make is that because of these conversations, the people we're talking to have had to give up every proof, right? They can't have there being any proof of anything.
Yeah, the pennies just dropped for 2 or 3 of us all at the same moment. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so I mean that's what we've done as a community within this conversation. Like, that's how far this has been pushed, where the people we're talking to now have to back down on just about everything.
Yeah,
Straight lines have to be circles.
That's funny because I actually saw that when what was his face? What's his face? I forget his name. But the straight line that was actually a circle, and he was like, "Oh, it's horizontal to the straight line."
John
like
G.
Yeah. I was dying, man. Like, you're right. They've gotten to a point where you can't prove anything about anything. It's like I've had somebody tell me, "Oh, you can't even prove that I'm here right now." It's like, wow, you really have gone to that level.
There's a name for that. There's a name for it. It's called an existential crisis.
Yeah, and they're going through it. That's serious pain, right? I mean, 10th Man just said, like, he wants more of it. I mean, there's no worse pain than the mental anguish of having to reorder everything.
Well, let me put that in context. If they continue lying, I want more of it. If they stop lying, we'll be their friends. I'm not going to sit around and let people lie to my fellow man when I know they're liars. So we're going to come in very nicely with all the arguments and logic, and people can decide, and people are deciding when they're calling a straight line curved and your term bendizontal and all these different things. It's like, wait a minute, these people don't want the truth. These people want to lie to my neighbor. What am I going to do about that? Well, I'm going to form the best arguments I can so my neighbor can have a choice based on side-by-side comparison, and let my neighbor decide what's the truth.
Well, that's interesting you said that, Chocolate, because when I do get into these discussions with my son, that's what he says. You can't even prove that I exist.
Exactly. Exactly. Defending this quote-unquote model has led people to that extent. And John's right. It sounds like an existential crisis. Imagine saying things like that out loud. Like, I'm talking to somebody else, and I'm telling this person, you can't prove that I'm here talking to you. Like, are you out of your mind? Do you need medical assistance? What's wrong with you?
I told him, I said, Jacob, I was there when you came out of your mother's womb. I can prove you exist.
Well, the statement, "you can't prove that I exist," proves he exists. It's a self-contradictory statement.
Okay, so Bev's point, just to summarise, is it's not that they're relinquishing their former claim to be globe proofs. They're saying, if we can't have these formerly claimed to be globe proofs, then there is no proof. Proof isn't a thing. That's essentially what Bev's saying. They've had to relinquish the idea of there being proof because what they thought proved their claim doesn't. Therefore, proof isn't real because they haven't got any.
Yeah.
I see that a little different. If we can't have our lies be seen as truth, then we don't want the truth to come out about our lies. These are liars. These are deceivers.
Yeah, I've told him I have a proof that level is horizontal. So that's not possible. So they can't have that, right?
Gotta stop. You're not in the company of fundies now, Bev. To say that you need to do that, to me, is an absurd statement. You don't need to do that.
That's where I came from, right? That's literally why I'm here. Somebody challenged me with by calling me a horrible thing, but I didn't actually have a proof of my own. So, like, I've got a proof, and I'm happy with it. And that's what I think they don't like, right? It's the idea that proofs are real and they do exist in reality. And that's how easy it is to disprove a model that doesn't exist.
Yeah, but think about how easy it was, like for them 6 years ago, to just say to everybody, "Oh, well, science proves we live on a globe. You idiot science denier. What's wrong with you?" Right? None of them say that now. They're literally saying the opposite now.
Yeah, science doesn't prove anything. That's what they tell us.
It doesn't prove anything now. They called us science deniers for years because all they could say was science proves the globe all day long.
I'm sure somewhere there's a saying about you becoming the very thing that you're putting out there. And in this case, them putting out there back in 2015 and 16 that we were science deniers, they've become the very thing they claim we were. So they're literally denying that science proves things. Denying science in the most literal of terms. That's what they've become.
Again, I got to say, they're cherry picking here. Because if any one of these individuals who are lying are having to go to court and they have the proper receipts and they can prove with those receipts that they were overcharged by a significant amount, they will win their case. They believe in that proof all day long, just not this one.
How would you go about proving there's no such thing as proof?
You can't.
Stolen concept. Welcome to the world of logic. They can't have it. It doesn't exist. And in order for them to have their model, I call it the model affliction, they have to end up denying all sorts of other things. They don't realize the consequences of a model versus a reality and proof. And it's a really strange place for them to be in. And they are in pain. Like you're share your pain. Like they don't want to come. Like their pain's that much when they come here. They're never going to do it.
But we are
then they're going to go to the nut house then.
We are talking about people who think other people are living antipodal to them, thousands of miles beneath their own feet. So, yeah.
So if you're watching live, there's 125 odd people watching live right now, and you enjoy Flat Earth debate, you will definitely enjoy Bev Try Thinking. And yeah, he's, as I say, he's a specialist globe annihilator. So check him out. Hopefully someone will spam his link so you can go and subscribe to him immediately.
Logic Night tonight, 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. UK. We delve into logic and the basic concepts of it. And it may sound really simple, but these basic concepts of logic do away with the globe. The relativism that you're going to hear a lot about coming soon, because that's the only place they can go to. The only thing that can counter that is a firm understanding of logic. Thank you very much. Logic Night. We do Logic Night and we do Euclid Night, basic geometric concepts. They're the same thing, really. The Euclid and the geometry. It's sort of a theme we've got going where we link logic, geometry, and reality, all three of them, so closely linked. And also, all of them.
Although it's a little bit lowbrow, there's a lot of memes. So if you're a fan of memes in general,
t-shirt logic,
there you go.
I mean, yeah, t-shirt logic. We do all of that sort of stuff.
So Bev Try Thinking is Adam's very kindly stick his channel so you can see the kind of thing he's doing on screen right now, scrolling by. So that's his channel. Check him out. Go and subscribe. Link is on its way up through the live stream chat as we speak.
Whilst I'm still on screen, if I can just flick to this one, it's probably I don't know if anybody knows it, but is it coming out tonight? It's just Q and Fee. I think he's Dutch. Owen, you might know him, but quite kooky. I like his videos, but the point of this is look at what he's talking about. And I've never engaged with this guy, but obviously the sextant debate is having an impact elsewhere, as that this guy's dealing with sextant issues and addressing their nonsense as well. So just to give a shout out, that's at I think 11 o'clock tonight. Ewan feed channel. I'll spam that in the link in a sec. But just say nice to see the topics expanding past people we know directly as well, which is good to see them picking up and slapping the ballers with it.
Absolutely.
It's a
And
strange group, isn't it?
Say again.
That's a strange group, isn't it? I mean,
Bob, Simon, Dan fight the flat Earth, and I assume it's the channel host with the crazy green hair and beard.
Yeah, now that's Professor Dave, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, is that
Dave.
Professor Dave? Oh, okay.
Yeah, imagine that for a party. But I wouldn't have put Bob in with those guys. Not all of those never talk to each other, do they?
I don't know. Do you know these people? Yeah. I don't know any of these people.
No.
Well,
no,
Bob,
I mean,
that's a slight lie. Bob, I've interacted with a couple of times now, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to two of them.
I've talked to Craig as well.
Simon and the reference frame rule.
Yeah, I can't see, like, of all of the times, right? You, like I said earlier, you've had your list of whatever, and these are the guys that are debunking what I term as just reality. People asking questions, and they don't have any answers. So these debunkers are. They have no proof, and they admit now. You feel quite happy that all of these people have no proof of anything that they're talking about. So and they'll quite happily admit it now. So
Bev, is this the best they can do? Is this the best they can do? Is this their A team for the globe defense?
They've got nothing. It's gone. Like surely you've noticed over the last 2-3 years, right? It's the steady decline of the Globe Defender. They've turned into debunkers. They don't even want to defend the Globe anymore.
They've turned into people who will ask us for proof of their claims.
Yeah.
That their claims are even made by their own side. That's how far they've fallen.
They ask you for proof when they know there is no proof, like on their side. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Not only that, they're asking us to prove flat Earth.
Nothing wrong with that.
Crying out.
Hold on. Yeah. You've said this yesterday. There's nothing wrong with that. If you make a positive assertion the Earth is flat, then there's nothing wrong with them asking you to justify your claim. There's plenty of things to justify your claim with.
Yeah, if they're not accepting any.
That doesn't matter.
I mean,
that doesn't matter.
Stop talking to him.
It doesn't matter. If they don't accept it, if they give you a handwave dismissal, or more likely than not an ad hominem, then that's their problem, not yours. But you're phrasing it as though it's unreasonable for you to prove a flat Earth. Now, maybe it's me saying it's obvious observably navigatably and measurably flat.
They got the claim of globe, though. We're just revealing that it's flat.
Yeah. You've got to understand, you seem to have been conditioned by the route I lead the guests on, Neil. So I lead them into making their positive assertion, and then I take it apart. And in that instance, there's no need for me to prove a flat Earth. But if you just go up to somebody and say, Earth's flat, and they say, prove it. You go, it's not up to me to prove it. You've got the positive claim of a... No. It doesn't work like that.
You give them the proof. That's what I'm saying. You give them the proof, and they still refuse to accept it. That's when you just got to shut the door.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think Bev alluded to this earlier in terms of the geometric paradox they're now left with, because they've gone full circle. So they've been claiming a geometric edge. We've debunked the geometric edge. They've therefore spent 2 straight years denying the geometric edge. And now we're back to measuring angles and they need a geometric tangent point edge again. So they've gone full circle back to 2015. But it's not like we haven't forgotten them chanting refraction for 2 straight years, is it? So that, as I say, is going to leave them in a lot of cognitive pain. They need to go back to 2015 and say, oh, yeah. Earth curve gets in the way of this here boat. It's like, hello, we're still here. Yeah, we've debunked all that crap. You've been telling us it's refracted for 2 years. But what, you need to now forget all about that and go back to calling it a geometric edge blocking boats? Yeah, that's going to leave a sting, isn't it? Yeah, we know it. No, we're all sitting pretty. None of us care in that regard. But when you're telling us, well, I would approve it then, as Wally did in one of my comments earlier on today, when he's asking me, how would you go about proving it can be measured with a curve adjacent, Nathan? I wouldn't, Wally. I don't care about how you get around your troubling issue of not having the capabilities of doing any trig with a curved adjacent. You can't. That's not my problem, though. I'm not going to give you the answers. You share your pain with us, Wally, in the comments. Just continue to do what you're doing so I can smile and point out that that's not my problem. A bit like Blue Marble asking me out, well, how would you do it with a curved adjacent? These people are retards. They think that passing back the devastating argument we've put to them about their sphere Earth beneath needs them to put it back to us like somehow we're going to give them a solution to how you can have a curved adjacent. You can't. But that doesn't mean I'm going to somehow give you the solution. Like, typically, you've got gurus out there on the globe giving you them. There isn't a solution to this. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate.